Some teams have great years and get rewarded with World Series titles. Some teams have great seasons that are rewarded with World Series losses. Some teams are even rewarded with great seasons but a choke job and miss out on the World Series. What do you think about great teams that won the World Series? I'm thinking the 1998 New York Yankees, who won the most games combined, regular season, postseason ever. Great teams that did well, but lost the finals. I think about the 1960 Yankees. They put up 55 runs to Pittsburgh's 27 in that series, and they still lost in 7 games. That was the Mazeroski home run thing. And of course, great teams that won did well, but didn't make the World Series are the 2001 Seattle Mariners. 116 wins, and what do you got? They lost in the ALCS to those pesky Yankees. But what if I told you there was a great season by a team, but they didn't make the playoffs? Not because the playoff format wouldn't allow it. Like there were probably a lot of great teams in from 1901 to 1968 that didn't make the World Series because they were second in the AL/NL. Or basically a great team that did well but couldn't even make the LCS as they needed to be the division winner. Or a great team that, would have loved to be in the wild card, but they couldn't get in on that format. What if I told you there was a team that was so good, they were the best team in baseball in the National League, yet they didn't even make the playoffs, even though they had every right to make the playoffs because the format allowed it, all because of a bullshit strike? Well, let's talk about the 1981 Cincinnati Reds. In the 81 season, as propos, I thought, you've got Jeff Diamond, you've got one man, you've got a hat, a bat, and that's definitely not all. You got the bleachers, got from spring to fall, you got a dog, a drink, and that umpire's call. What do you want? Let's play what if. Okay. Okay, Cutter, do some what ifs. Okay, Cutter, do some what ifs. So let's look at the Cincinnati Reds as a franchise before we get to the 1981 season. The Cincinnati Reds are probably possibly the oldest franchise in baseball. They've been around since 1869, being the first professional team, the Red Stockings, and once having a 130-game winning streak. Can you imagine going 130 games without losing? The best major league teams can't even go 20 without losing nowadays. But regardless of that, the Red Stockings were the first major professional team and all that. So they've been around since day one. And Major League Baseball makes it a point for years upon years until probably the 2000s to make the Reds the first team to open the season because they're the oldest. So no matter what logistics were there, the Reds had to host the first game of the World Series and the first game of the season. So the Reds were decent and all that. The first major breakthrough, though, was 1919 when they got to the World Series against those pesky Chicago White Sox. Everyone thought the White Sox were going to maneuver and roll over the Reds. Unfortunately, though, the betting lines were on Cincy. One reason? Because the White Sox players, 7 crooked players, and one person who knew about the fix but didn't report it, were basically bribed by this Arnold Rothstein guy, and they took the money. After all, Charlie Kubicki was a dick to them. Regardless of that, the Reds would win that World Series not so cleanly and all that. Reds fans think they were going to be jinxed because that World Series was not a clean win. The Reds wouldn't win another title until 1940, and they didn't have to worry about the Yankees. It was the Tigers they had to worry about. The Reds were decent. They had some great young talent, and by 1961 they were back on top of the National League and going to the 1961 World Series. They were holding the Yankees in check. Unfortunately, though, in Game 3, I think it was, Johnny Blanchard and Roger Maris hit home runs at Crosley Field and helped the Yankees win that series in 5. The Reds had Frank Robinson. Unfortunately, though, the Cincinnati GM, I think his was Bill DeWitt, said that Robinson it was an old 30, but Frank Robinson said he was a young 30. So the Orioles decided, hey, we'll take Frank Robinson. And since he's like, we need a good pitcher, fine, you can have Mil Pappas. Little did we know that Mil Pappas would choke for many years, although he did throw a no-hitter for the Cubs in 1972. So Frank Robinson just basically proved everyone wrong. The first season he was in the American League, poof, AL MVP, poof, World Series appearance. World Series title, even. So yeah, Cincy really got bit. However, Cincy would build up, and in 1971 would make a massive trade with the Houston Astros, trading away Lee May to the Astros for Joe Morgan. I don't know completely all that players. I think there was a 7-player deal, but yeah, Joe Morgan became great with his chicken wing stuff and batting stance. And the Reds were picking up pieces. They had Johnny Bench, who they made a homegrown talent. First base was Pete Rose. Second base was Joe Morgan. Third base being Tony Perez in a way. Shortstop Dave Concepcion. In the outfield of Cesar Geronimo, Ken Griffey Sr., and George Foster. Their pitching staff wasn't as memorable, but what matters is that the Reds won back-to-back World Series in 1975 and 1976. 75 was a classic, a 7-game slobber knocker, as the rains would actually help make this World Series more famous because now people had to write about the human side of the baseball teams. Regardless, even though that Carlton Fisk did hit his Game 6 home run in Game 7, the Reds still won to win the World Series. In 1976, they blew out everybody. They swept the Phillies and they in the LCS, and they swept the Yankees in the World Series. So they were dominant. So the Reds had some off and on years. They picked up Tom Seaver as the Mets basically did not like him and all that. Fuck you, Dick Young. The Reds would pick up some pieces and all that. P. Rose was gone to Philly free agency in 1979. So we bypassed 1981, and after that, the Reds were also ran since Tom Browning did pitch a perfect game in 1988, and the Reds did go from coast to coast in 1990 to win the NL West title. Little did they know they were going to be in the World Series. They went to the World Series against Oakland, who were making their third straight appearance, and poof, they swept the A's. Anyhow, the Reds would have a few decent seasons, but after 1990, they have been nothing much. I mean, Joey Votto's been great with the bat. But what else can I say about the Cincinnati Reds? Can't really say too much about it. Marty Brennaman is a legend. Tom Brennaman, not so much. So anyway, let's take a look at the 1981 Cincinnati Reds in a season in which they were robbed terribly. So the Cincinnati Reds, this was their season, the 112th season in Major League Baseball, and their 12th season at Riverfront Stadium. They were 66 and 42. They were the best win-loss record in all of baseball, not just the American League, but everywhere. 61%, not that bad. Of course, due to the split season format caused by the players' strike, they could not make the playoffs because they did not finish first in either half of the season. They were close in both halves. In the first half, they missed out by half a game to the LA Dodgers and 1.5 games to Houston in the second half. Before the final game of the season for the Reds, they actually revealed better, saying that they were the best team in baseball in 1981. John McEnroe would be the manager of the Reds. Of course, Red Sox fans would gag at that because Mac made some terrible mistakes in the 1986 World Series, especially not taking out Bill Buckner for defensive purposes and replacing him with Dave Stapleton. So yeah, that strike was just too much to bear and all of that. There weren't too much you could do. So the overall record, as you can see, is that the Reds were 4 ahead of Dodgers, 6 ahead of Houston. So that practically tells you that the Reds definitely were the best team in the NL West. They were only half game back of the Dodgers. Imagine if they played that one game and the Dodgers did and they win. Houston by 1.5 there. Because their opponent, Cincy, was pretty good against San Diego and the Cubs. but they couldn't beat St. Louis to save their lives. 0-5. Paul O'Neill was even drafted this year in 1981, which was big, as it is Paul O'Neill. And yeah, he did play for the Reds before he went to the Yankees. For the 1981 season, there was the problem with free agent compensation and all that, and so they went to a strike in the middle of the season in June 1981. For over a month, there was no baseball, and there were rumors that the season was done for. But they finally agreed to a deal. Although some say the owners having insurance on a baseball strike, well, they ran out because it was 50 days. Nevertheless, baseball had to figure out what to do, so they went with a split season format, despite some teams of negligence. Regardless of that, the New England Reds big. You had Tom Hume, Mike Lacoste, Charlie Lieber even pitched for this team. Paul Muscal, Joe Price, Tom Seaver, yes, Tom Treffick was still around, and Mario Soto being your pitchers. Joe Nolan being your main catcher, Johnny Bench playing infield. They put him at first base because of his knees. Dave Concepcion, Dan Dreesen was there, Ray Knight, a pre-Mets, Ray Knight. There. Oh. Dave Collins, the speedster, George Foster, the home run hitter, Ken Griffey Sr., the playmaker, Mike Vail. They were 11-7 in April, 16-3 in May, and June they were 8-1 until that blasted season ended on June 11th. Second half they were mediocre in August. September they were 20-8, but they were 1-3 in October. They lost the key game to the Astros, which was terrible. They did win their last game, but it was not there. So yeah, you see it. Nolan, Dreesen, Oyster, Concepcion, Knight, Foster, Griffey, and Collins being your main guys. Johnny Bench only played 52 games of that season. Joe Seaver would have a great win-loss record of 14-2. Mario Soto would be 12-9. Tom Hill was the closer. So that's what the 81 Reds were like. So now let's go to the NLCS. So the NLCS would have been the Cardinals and the Reds. Now let me explain. Now, the Cardinals were the best team in the NL East by wins and losses by winning percentage themselves. So not only were the Reds screwed, the Cardinals were screwed too because they had the best overall record in their division. Numerically, it didn't really matter because it was the Yankees and the A's. Both had the best overall record, so no big deals and no controversy there. But in the NL, there was. So the Cardinals would face the Reds in a best of 5 LCS. We are going by the ground rules, which is a best of 5 LCS in 1981. I decided to to let Sim match up, say who their main guys are. So Sorensen will start for the Cardinals. Forsch will pitch game 2, and Joaquin Andujar will pitch game 3. The Reds will go with Soto, Seaver, and Berani. That's their 3-man rotation. Here's game 1. Game 1, as you can see, the Reds sneak out a 3-2 win. As George Foster hit a double to score Dave Collins, the future Blue Jay, in the bottom of the first. Joe Nolan hit a double to score Collins. Griffey Sr. would get a single, scored Nolan to make it 3-0. Nolan was the catcher after Bench was moved. Tom Herr hit it RBI double to score Sisto Lascano. And then Tom Herr grounded out to score Ken Oberfell. It was 3-2. Joe Price came in for the save. Lascano flew out. Oberkefell struck out. And Tito Landrum, yes, that Tito Landrum, would be a pinch hitter for Mark Littell. Remember him, Chris Chambliss? Anyway, Landrum strike. So Soto went 8 for the win. Price the 9 for the save. Sorensen went 6 for the Cardinals. Mark Littell finished it out. Game 2, we'll see Bob Forsch taking on Tom Seaver. So a pair of legendary pitchers against each other. And it was a pitching matchup for a king. The Reds won 1-0. Only 10 hits combined. The Reds did have a runner on third in the third inning, but Joe Nolan grounded out. Dave Concepcion did hit the only run of the game with a home run to left field in the fourth inning. That reminds me of a PC replay game I did, in which the 1908 Cubs and the 1993 White Sox were at 0-0 for the longest time. The only run was a home run in the fourth by someone who doesn't really hit home runs. The 81 Cardinals in the sixth had a chance. They had runners on first and third after Dane Org got a single. Gary Templeton walked. Now, a lot of people think, Gary Templeton, how? Yeah, he was the shortstop for St. Louis before Ozzie Smith was. And no, Templeton wasn't traded to make room for Ozzie on the roster. Templeton was traded for Ozzie Smith because Ozzie Smith played for the Padres and Templeton. Okay. But Lascano grounded out to third. In the eighth, the Cardinals may have had a chance. After a George Henry walk, it was first and second, with one out with Dane Orge and Gary Templeton both flew out. Joe Price came in for the save. Lascano grounded out. Ogrefell grounded out. And Gene Roof came into the game for Littell. So Seaver 8 innings did his job. Joe Price to save. Yeah, Gene Roof, I should say. Bob Force 7 and 2/3. Then made way for Littell. So the Reds have a 2-0 series lead headed to St. Louis. And it is Bruce Berani and Joaquin Andujar who have to face each other. And home cooking was not there as the Reds swept the Cardinals and would go on to the 1981 World Series. Even though Joe Nolan does get a ground out, George Hendricks singles in the bottom of the third score hurt. And then in the seventh, 1-1. Give me that. Littell pitch. Griffey walks. Concepcion singles. Foss Oster walks. Dreesen hits into a fielder's choice to score Griffey Sr. Knight gets a double to score Concepcion and Dreesen. The Gym Cat has to come into pitch for the Cardinals. Gets Bernie the ground out, but then Dave Collins doubles to make it 5-1. Cardinals do score a run thanks to an RBI ground out by Tommy Herr. George Hendrick is the bottom of the eighth, hit a home run. In the ninth, Ray Knight singled. Joe Price sacrifice bunted. Dave Collins tripled to score Knight. Bob Shirley comes in to pitch. Surely it can't be possible. Surely it is. And don't call me Shirley. Joe Nolan gets a sac fly. George Foster hits a run to left. But 8-3, Tito Landrum did come in to pitch hit. But Keith Hernandez ran out short. So Adam Hart went 6. He was doing so well, and then Mark Littell just had to fuck it up for him. The Jim Cat 2/3, then Jim Otten, Bob Shirley, and Andy Rincon. For the Reds, Berani with a win, then Price and Hume were there. So the Reds swept the Cardinals. Now comes the big one because they have to face the New York Yankees. Reason being is that, the Yankees, in real life, the Yankees won the AL, so we're not going to change it up. So the New York Yankees would start against the Reds. Soto would start against Ron Guidry. I think, right? Yeah, I have to check the 1981 World Series in real life about the rotation. Hang on one sec. All right, so the Yankees rotation is what was in real life in the 1981 World Series. And Ron Guidry started Game 1 at Yankee Stadium. Even though the Reds have more wins and a higher winning percentage, because the major leagues at the time rotated home field advantage with the leagues. The American League had home field advantage in 1981. And Johnny Bench just put it in as DH. Game 1 sees the Reds crush the Yankees 11-2. Joe Nolan doubled to score Dave Collins. Really have a catcher second overall. Griffey Sr. hit a single to score Nolan, and then Ron Oyster hit a single to score Bench. 3-0. Dave Winfield hit a home run in the bottom of the first. Johnny Bench grounds out to second to get a run across. George Foster grounds a single to score Collins. And then Concepcion, for some reason, hit a 3-run home run down the left field line, so the Reds were fucking flying 8-1. George Frazier will come in to pitch, and that was the same score until the top of the eighth when Dave Collins walked, Joel Nolan walks, and then George Foster hits one down the left field line, making that bird pitch. Bird, 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 bird. Bird's the word. Midfield hits a double to make it 11-2, but that was it. Roy Guthrie only going 3 2/3. George Frazier, Gene Nelson did well. Gene Nelson got bit. Doug Bird. Bird's the word. Bird's the word. Soto, 100 pitches for the win. Tommy John pitched game 2, and he faces Tom Seaver. And Tom Seaver does not do his magic as the Reds fall for the first time this year, losing 5-0. Gamble gets an RBI ground out. Jackson gets a single score Winfield. Willie Randolph singles to score Rick Cerrone. Yeah, the former Blue Jay. Concepcion makes an error, and Rick Nettles scores to make it 4-0. Greg Nettles singles to score Cerrone in the eighth, and Paul Moscow had to come pitch. The Reds had nothing. Tommy John pitched a complete game victory. Seaver 7 2/3, and then Moscow a third. So on to Cincinnati. We're going to Cincinnati. Bruce Bermani for game 3. Dave Rigetti for game 3 in real life. And it would be the Reds winning 3-2. Close one, but yeah, they won. Concepcion hit that double down the right field line to score Foster and Griffey to make it 2-0. Nettles singled to score Watson. Nettles then got a sac fly to score Rigetti, who was on base after a single to right field. And of course, the RJO network thing is floating in my head. DH, I don't need no stinking DH. And then Knight hit a single to score Oyster. Well, it was 2 runs on 1 hit. Yeah, it was 2 runs on 1 hit for the Reds for the longest time. They went up 3-2, and that was all. The Yankees did have a few opportunities, but they failed. Berani the win 6 2/3. Price inning a third, and Tom Hume saved the game. Dave Rigetti went 7 innings, then Ron Davis pitched the 8th to no avail. So in real life, they had 4 starters, Rick Russell. So the Reds have to go with Frank Pastor for game 4 because they want to do a 4-man rotation like the Yankees in real life. And in the end, it was the Reds winning 4-2, so they're now up 3-1. Foster hits a home run to left off of Russell. Forgot Rick Russell was a Yankee. Griffey Sr. made a mistake on a ball and Cerrone scores. Winfield makes it 2-1. Home run. And then in the bottom of the 6th, Collins doubled. Nolan popped out. Foster flew out. So the Reds were 1 down. Wait, Griffey Sr. hit a double to score Collins. Ron Davis came in to pitch. Concepcion would take a walk. Then Oyster would single to score Griffey. And then Dreyson scored Concepcion 4-2. Yankees went down quickly in the ninth. Frank Pastor pitched the whole game, 96 pitches. 81 Yankees. Russell went 5 2/3. Ron Davis and Dave LaRoche with a frisbee pitch. So the Reds are up 3-1. Back to the top of the rotation for both boys. Will the Yankees win or will the Reds win? It will be the Yankees who win and force a game 6 back home. So the Yankees win 4-3. Griffey did not score Collins. Dave Winfield in the top of the 4th. And a solo home run. Bucky Dent hit one to left field. He was still playing in 1981? Wow. Ray Knight doubled to score Oyster. Greg Nettles home run. 4-2. Oyster doubled to score Joe Nolan and make it 4-3. Unfortunately, that's as close as the Reds would get. Goose Gossage came in to pitch. Ray Knight singled. And then Johnny Bench came in for Joe Price to pinch hit. Hits a single. And then gets replaced by Bruce Berani to pinch run. Collins is out, and Joe Nolan hits in a double play, and the Yankees win 4-3. It was close. Soto went 8, Price the 9th. Guthrie 5 innings, and Ron Davis and Dave LaRoche did everything in the power to do the job so that Goose Gossage could pick up the save, which he did. So it's 3-2. Tommy John pitches Game 6 against Tom Seaver. Who will win? The Battle of the Tom Toms. It would be the New York Yankees who win Game 6 to force at Game 7. Oscar Gamble double score Willie Randolph. Griffey Sr. gets a ground out. Nettles in the bottom of the 6th, singles to score Randolph. Bucky Dent again hits a home run in the series. In the bottom of the 7th, he did it 5-1. 3-3 down for the Reds in the 9th. John went 7. Ron Davis 2 innings. Tom Seaver went the whole way and lost. So now we're going to go to a Game 7. Bruce Berani will have to pitch against Dave Righetti, who was a starter before he became a world-class closer. And in the end, it was not meant to be. The Yankees were trying to do the impossible, come back from 3-1 down. It didn't happen. The Reds win Game 7, 10-0. So the Reds did their job and avoided the curse. Dave Righetti made a bad wild pitch to score Collins. Then Jerry Mumphrey misplays a critical play by Concepcion. Foster scores. Second and third. Oster hits a double to score Griffey and Concepcion to make it 4-0. Just like that. The Yankees finally got a hit in the bottom of the 5th. Ray Knight doubles to score Oster. And then Gene Nelson came in to pitch in the top of the 7th. Nolan doubled. Foster grounded out. Johnny Bench hits a ground rule double to score Nolan. Griffey walks. Concepcion walks. Oyster walks to score Bench. And then Frazier came in to pitch. Got Dreesen to fly out the center. But then Ray Knight takes a bases loaded walk. So 2 bases loaded walks for runs. Griffey singles to score Joe Nolan, and Concepcion makes a sac fly. Doug Bird had to come in to pitch. And a 3-hitter. Dave Righetti loses 6 innings. Gene Nelson, George Frazier, and Doug Bird tried to fix the problem. But Bruce Berani, again, coming out of fucking nowhere. Berani, a 93 pitch, 3-hitter. The only guys to get a hit off him were Nettles, Mumphrey, and Bucky Dent. So Bruce Berani proving that he was a decent pitcher. And that we were all wrong about him. I didn't even know who he was, in a sense. But yeah, the Reds win the World Series in 7. So celebrate, Cincinnati. You were the best team in baseball, and you got yourselves a World Series title. If only in your dreams. Of course, the postscript is that the 1981 Cardinals would win the World Series the next year. They didn't have to wait long. The 81 Yankees would have to wait till 1996 to win a World Series. The Oakland A's didn't have to wait too far for their dynasty in the late 80s. But the Cincinnati Reds had to wait a long time to become relevant. That sucks. Anyway, I'm going to do.